Welcome back everyone. In this video I'm going to show you how to get the best out of the Godslayer incantations at level 100 and create a monster of a build that will wipe the floor with most of the bosses. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to let me know that you enjoy these builds, because it motivates me to work even harder to create them. Being a level 100 build, every point matters, so choosing the right class from the beginning is one of the most important things. For this build we will not use intelligence and arcane, and we need a minimum stat investment into dexterity to use the weapon, and a few points into mind to have FP to use our spells. For that reason we will settle for the samurai class, and this is our stat spread looks at level 100. 40 vigor will give us enough HP to avoid getting one shot. 16 mind is enough to use our spells a few times before we run out of FP. I put 21 points into endurance because I like to play a little more aggressive, so I consume more stamina attacking. But you could give up a few points if you think it's a lot while still being able to mid-roll because of the great rune. So put the points into vigor or fate for extra damage. No point into strength and 15 points into dexterity, because with the bonus from the great rune we will match the minimum requirements to use the weapon. As mentioned above, no points into intelligence and arcane, and the rest of our points go into fate, so we can get a lot of damage for our spells and weapons. For this build I picked Godric's Great Rune because we need the 5 bonus points in every stat except Intel and Arcane, and this is how our stats will look with the Great Rune active. The main weapon we use is the Godskin Pillar with the Flame Art affinity. Because we gave it this affinity, it gains C scaling in Fate, which is great because we have a lot of points here and its damage is going to climb up. It also has E scaling in Strength and D in Dexterity, but we don't care about this because our million spell damage will come from Fate. Because of that, with the help of Godric's Great Rune, we only need to match the minimum requirements to wield it properly. Without any buff, it has 663 AR, which is good for a twin blade. We can buff it further with the Flask of Wondrous Physique, with its Flame Shrouding Crack tier and Fate Knot tier, and also by eating the Exalted Flesh consumable. By doing so, we reach a total of 807 AR. This twin blade comes with the Black Flame Tornado Ash of War, for which I only have words of praise. As the name implies, it creates a tornado which is amazing against groups of enemies or against big enemies with a lot of HP due to its enormous damage output. Also, what's nice about it is that after the recent patch we can roll out of the animation if we feel like we can't finish it safely. Our seal for casting the incantations is obviously the Godslayer seal, which has D scaling in strength and S in fate, and an incantation scaling of 293. Its scaling can also be increased to 312 by drinking the flask with the aforementioned tiers. I personally like to run a second Godslayer seal in the other hand when casting spells, and two-hand the main one to buff the damage of the spells even further. For the armor, we use the Godskin Apostle Hood, the Godskin Noble Robe, the Black Flame Monk Gauntlets and the Bull Goat Graves. For the head, we could also use the Godskin Noble Hood, which I believe looks just a little better, but I picked the Apostle Hood because it has better stats. The Godskin Noble Robe is there because it increases the damage of Noble Presence incantation by 20%. For the hands, I wanted something of the same style that covers the whole arm, but I couldn't find anything better than the Black Flame Monk Gauntlets. And the Bull Goat Graves are very similar in style and looks with the arms, and also provides great stats. Speaking of stats, using this setup we have decent damage reduction, which can be further buffed by the Black Flame Protection. For the Talismans, we use the Shard of Alexander, which greatly improves the weapon skill. The Phlox Canvas is important if we want our spells to deal good damage, because the talisman increases their potency by around 8%. The Fire Scorpion Charm is a must-have because everything in this build deals fire damage, and the talisman increases it by 12%. The increased physical damage taken from using the Scorpion Charm is countered by the last talisman we use, the Dragon Crest Great Shield. But if you feel like you get staggered too often and you're unable to cast the spells, you can replace the Dragon Crest Great Shield with the Bull Goat Talisman, which makes us have 51 poise, and that's exactly how much we need to withstand a light attack without being interrupted. Due to our high fate, we can use all the Godslayer incantations, because we changed the affinity of our weapon to Flame Art, we cannot apply Black Flame Blade anymore. I personally don't use Scouring Black Flame, although it's a good tool against multiple opponents. I panic during fights if I have to swap spells when I have too many, so I decided to give it up because we have other spells to deal AoE damage. Black Flame Ritual raises pillars around us which deal damage over time to anybody who steps in. I personally love to combo this with the weapon skill Black Flame Tornado to deal ridiculous amounts of damage. Against tough opponents who deal physical damage, the Black Flame protection is a must-have, as it should be active on us every time we fight mighty opponents, because the 35% physical damage reduction is extremely good and lasts 70 seconds. Noble Presence is the Black Flame version of Wrath of Gold, and it deals good damage because it is boosted by the Godskin Noble Robe. It doesn't have much use in PvE, but I mostly use it against NPC invaders. I like to use Black Flame as an opener against faraway opponents, and it is good because after it deals its base damage, a damage over time effect persists for a few seconds. It can also be charged for extra damage. For this build, I picked Black Flame Monk Amon as the Spirit Ash. He is quite tanky and makes use of some unique Black Flame spells. I tested him against the Godskin Apostle boss, which has high resistance to physical and fire damage, and also against Exekias, and I had to run to the Grace and stop Amon from soloing the dragon because I would have lost my favorite test subject. For the Flask of Wondrous Physique, I picked the Flame Shrouding Cracked tier and Fate Knot tier. The Flame tier is a no-brainer, because every damage source we have deals fire damage and 20% bonus is very good. The Fate Knot tier gives us 10 bonus points into Fate, and that means extra damage for both the weapon and the spells for 3 minutes. Other consumables we use are the Exalted Flesh and the Boiled Crab. Exalted Flesh improves our physical damage by 20% for 30 seconds. The Boiled Crab is there only in case we run out of FP and we need to apply some defensive buff. It only boosts our physical resistance by 20% for 60 seconds. It doesn't stack with the Exalted Flesh or the Black Flame protection, so only use it if you have no other option. The Godslayer build is beginner friendly and a great choice for people who have no idea what the roll button does or can't roll to save their skin, because it has extremely high damage reduction. For this build, you might want to pick the warrior class at the character creation, because it has better stat distribution for what we are trying to build for level 100. And this is how our stat spread will look like. 41 vigor, just a little more HP than before. 14 mind, because with the bonus from the Great Rune, we have enough to summon the Spirit Ash. 29 endurance, because we use a colossal weapon and we also wear heavy armor, and at this amount we can safely mid-roll. No points in strength, because with the bonus from the Great Rune, we can safely use the weapon when two-handling it. 41 dexterity, because our weapon scales best with this stat. No point in intelligence and arcane. 25 fate, because with the bonus from the Great Rune we can use the Black Flame protection. We keep the Great Rune and this is how our stats will look with it active. Our main weapon is the Godslayer Greatsword, which unbuffed has 817 AR. The seal stays the same. Our new armor will be Black Flame Monk Hood, armor and gauntlets with the Fire Prelate boots. The whole set gives us 69 poise and a lot of damage resistance. For the Talismans, we replaced the Shard of Alexander with Millicent Prosthetis, because the dex bonus is great for our damage, and with the colossal weapon like the one we use, we only need to hit an enemy twice to get the bonus AR from the Talisman. The Dragon Crest Great Shield and Bull God's Talisman are a must-have for this build. And for the last one, if you want extra damage from your weapon, keep Fire Scorpion Charm and use Exalted Flesh and a flask for a total of 1111 AR. But if you want better resistances when fighting opponents with big elemental damage, you might want to swap it for the Pearl Drake Talisman plus 2. For the consumables, everything stays the same, except the flask, where we have a few options. Dexterity Knot tier is a must-have for the 10 points bonus. As for the other tier, if you want damage, keep the Flame Shrouding tier. If you want to break the enemy's poise easier, use the Stonebark Cracked tier. For the spells, the must-have is the Black Flame protection for the insane resistance, and if you want other options, throw some Black Flames around and the Noble Presence if you want to do some PvP. And those were my builds for the Godslayer incantations. If you like them, please subscribe and like the video. It shows me that I'm on the right track and it motivates me to make even more builds. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.